As a father of 4, as well as a teacher, I spend a lot of my life trying to explain things to kids. Now, recently I've been having conversations with my oldest daughter about the different types of vehicles she sees out on the road, from SUVs to hatchbacks to crossovers. Now, if you've ever explained to somebody what a crossover is, especially someone who doesn't know that much about vehicles, you know my frustrations. What makes a crossover, right? Now, when I brought this home, the 2016 Nissan Juke NISMO, it didn't help the conversation one bit. I was kind of saying before she saw it, oh, it's like a small car, but taller, except for it's not, right? So needless to say, I don't know where this fits. Compact crossover? Maybe. But I don't know that it matters that you have to define it or not, because I have had a blast driving this thing around. And for, I think, quite a few people out there, this is actually a pretty logical little choice. So I'm Greg Kavanaugh. This is my amateur car review channel, Gallup Journey Test Drives. Welcome to the beautiful Red Rock State Park just outside of Gallup, New Mexico. Stick around and I'll see if I can help you figure out who those people are. Maybe it's you. Thanks for finding me. So let's cut to the chase here. This is the NISMO version of the Juke, and they also make the NISMO RS. NISMO, Nissan Motorsports. It's the hot hatch version of this crossover. And I have to say, that makes it a ton of fun. So I am evaluating this from the aspect of the hot rodded versions of these that make the Juke so much fun. But I wouldn't be surprised if the all-wheel drive turbocharged versions of these that aren't NISMO are still pretty fun to drive. Now, when it comes to exterior styling, there's no doubt that this vehicle is polarizing. Either you think it's stupid ugly or crazy cool for the most part. You guys can comment below with what you think. For the most part, I don't know that it necessarily matters. What Nissan wanted here is unique. They wanted it to stand out in a crowd. The crossover segment, especially this smaller one, is pretty crowded and pretty generic. And so more and more manufacturers are trying to figure out a way to get noticed. Think of like the Kia Soul, the Cube, that kind of stuff, right? And this does its job very well. Now, in terms of Nissan styling as a whole, I think it's the same. You either love it or hate it. The Maxima I recently drove and the Titan are great examples. Within that styling language, the Juke fits. Yes, it's probably the most, egregious version or the most outrageous version of that styling language, but it certainly fits within the family. Me personally, I think quirky and cool is what you would want in a small compact crossover. You don't want it just looking like a Toyota Corolla, right? You want to stand out. The NISMO version, of course, takes that and ups it. Okay, take the black rims, for example. I think they look really great. There's awesome red pinstriping and mirrors on this that echo the themes on the inside as well. The front end here is where people usually love it or hate it the most. I think it's kind of cool. These are unique, very different. I like those. The side kind of flare and stuff reminds me of the Maxima, which I like as well. As a whole, I have to say, I kind of fall in the camp that I like the way this thing is styled. I realize this is quite hard to see in the shot. White car, black interior, blazy New Mexico sun, but here I am sitting behind myself. I'm 5'8". Now, granted, I'm not that huge, right? But I'm pretty reasonably comfortable here. Headroom is fine for me. That's about the best you're gonna do here. 2 abreast is really the best you're gonna do back here as well. I had my kids' boosters in here and it worked okay. And then I also put in my infant daughter by herself here in the center. I did have to move these seats up just slightly, but it actually worked a little bit better than I thought it would. As those of you guys know who have to use an infant carrier car seat, you put it in the center. You really gotta move these seats forward to get that thing where it needs to be and not be crammed in there. And the Juke actually did better than I thought it would in there. Now, these are pretty high belt line here, small windows, so it's not exactly a place I'd want to be a lengthy period of time, but it does its job as expected. I mean, granted, this is only a 99-inch wheelbase. It's not that big. So, yeah, it's surprising back here. There's no center armrest, by the way, either. But it is what it is. So here's the thing, when it comes to cargo space, the Nissan Juke really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like 10.5 cubic feet. It's really pretty unusable. This is like a full-size camping cooler. It barely fits. It does, but it barely fits, and then there's really not much room for anything else. I also took a shot of another camping cooler I have. It's basically the same size cooler in terms of capacity. It's just a different shape. It was too tall. It wouldn't shut. And that's pretty common for what a lot of people have, go to the beach, whatever. In terms of full-size suitcases, you could get one in here, and that's probably about it. Yeah, groceries or whatever for a single person or maybe a couple, you could probably get away with because you can obviously fold down the seats. I guess the moral of the story is here, don't buy a Juke for cargo capacity. It's a crossover, which makes you think you're supposed to have more space, but you don't. Look at the Honda HR-V, that's a small crossover, and it's got like 20 some cubic feet back there. So the Juke is not high, the scorecard is low for the Juke's cargo carrying capacity. That's just what it is. So this being the Nismo edition, you expect it to have some sporty intentions. And I would say for the most part, it lives up to that claim. First of all, let's just talk powertrain. 1.6 liter direct injected 4-cylinder turbocharged. Okay, now it's not the most potent, hottest package you can get. In fact, if you get the RS and you go with the 6-speed manual and only front wheel drive, you get well over 200 horsepower, and also the same thing when it comes to torque. Now, here you have a 1.6 liter making 188 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. Still very good numbers for a little 1.6 liter. And it moves around the Juke really quite well. I have to say with one exception, and that is the Cvt transmission. Now it's odd because I was actually praising the Cvt transmission in the Maxima. I thought it did quite well, and I normally don't like CVTs. But here in the Juke, you still get a lot of that rubber band, you still get a lot of that snowmobile effect where it just doesn't have that initial bite off the line. For instance, when you want to scoot out into traffic or make your way across a 4-lane, you know, when turning left, it doesn't really have that. And for a Nismo, you would expect better. The combination is going to give you 31 highway, 26 city, 28 combined. Not bad. Now granted, this is a little car, you wouldn't expect much worse, that's for sure. But considering you get kind of a spunky little powertrain and you're still getting, I would say, good fuel economy, it's win-win in that respect. With the 6-speed transmission, the manual, I'm sure it makes a big difference. However, you can't get that with the all-wheel drive. Not sure why, I don't know if it's a torque thing or whatever, but you know, if I were Nismo, I'd reconsider how to get this thing to have a 6-speed manual with the all-wheel drive. Let's talk about that all-wheel drive. It's selectable from 2-wheel drive to torque vectoring all-wheel drive and straight up all-wheel drive. I tried to get a shot here so you can see some wheel spin out in the dirt and see the difference, but it's kind of cool that you can select that. The torque vectoring is really cool out back, distributes the power when you're kind of under hard cornering, which allows you to put a little more grunt into the outside tire and get the thing to rotate just slightly. So that's kind of cool. You can feel it like on a cloverleaf on-ramp if you're really getting on the gas. Now in terms of ride quality, there's no doubt about it. This thing rides pretty harsh. Out on the highway, you don't notice it as much. You can kind of get away with it. But around town and on rough streets, like here in New Mexico, city driving, when you have potholes and stuff, this thing is a very firm, sporty suspension. There's no doubt about it. Steering feel is really tight, really direct, quite heavy actually. You get your nice red marker at the center on the steering wheel here, so you know where top dead center is. And the steering wheel Alcantara covered is pretty cool. I haven't had a lot of experience with those, and I have to say I really like it. It gives the sporty feel you're looking for, that's for sure. But yeah, don't buy this expecting a nice cushy cross-country machine. It is a great darty city machine. That's what I think. Now when it comes to the interior here in the Juke, it's really quite functional, you know, and it kind of tries to reflect these sporty intentions. You got little Nismo things here and there that kind of give you that feel. Kind of a really cool setup here with the climate control. There's a button you hit for climate and that lights up the buttons for AC and vents and so forth. Then there's another button you hit called D mode that switches those buttons to normal, sport, and eco, and some other driver information settings and so forth. It's kind of cool cool. My biggest frustration with that, however, though, is you have to hit the climate control button first before you can adjust the fan speed. It makes adjusting the fan speed a two-step process. Now this does have kind of a cool around camera function, around the car camera function, which is really cool. You can see like the passenger side wheel, there's a camera underneath the mirror, same thing on the driver's side, as well as a backup camera. That's really quite cool. You know, a pretty nice touchscreen here, if not a little bit small. It's very colorful and super easy to use. Speaking of infotainment, this is a Rockford Fosgate sound system. Holy cow, man, this thing is just loaded with bass. I mean, when you think Rockford Fosgate, you think subs, and this thing just pounds. I mean, you have to lower the bass setting to well below normal to get kind of an evenly balanced sound system. But if you want to bump your hip hop tunes or whatever, this'll do it. You want to rock your club beat while you're going out on the town at night in your Nissan Juke NISMO? Hey, you know it fits the bill. The seats here are really good. They are NISMO specific seats, and they really grab you and they hold you quite well. I noticed them immediately. They're quite nice. The whole effect is pretty good. You get paddle shifters with the CVT, which you know, they give you 7 speeds when you use them, and they work. They do work. I'll give you that. It's still a CVT. Kind of begs the question of why you have them, but yeah, you can drop down through the gears and really take off when you need to. All right, so let's get to the point here. The Juke is really a cool little urban mobile. I mean, it's super easy to maneuver and see out of and park. You know, it's got good thrust for cutting in and out of traffic and so forth. It really fits that bill. The question is it worth it? I mean, this thing is priced at almost $30K. I was not expecting it to be that expensive. Granted, you're getting a turbocharged engine, all-wheel drive. NISMO is kind of the, you know, it's the sport tune, so you do expect to pay more. It just kind of makes you wonder, when you get a 20K Juke, is this thing worth another 10K? That's a really good question. Now, what I think is a pretty good comparison is something like the Mini Countryman, like the All-4. You know, it's kind of unique. It's not quite a full crossover or whatever. It's its own little category. You know, it's got individualized styling that when you want to stand out, it does a good job with that. And that thing is also about 30K. So it really begs the question, is a Nissan have the same cachet and does it demand the same price as a Mini? I don't know. That's for the buyer to determine. In my opinion, I would expect this to be a little bit cheaper than that Mini. So it's something to think about with what you're looking for. So overall, how do you rate the Nissan Juke NISMO? It's a ton of fun. It has styling that sticks out, and it's got a rockin' stereo system, and that makes it perfect for the urban runabouts, for scooting in and out of traffic and around town. And I have to say, when it comes to doing what it's supposed to do, it does it really well. Just improve the CVT. Hey, just want to give a shout out, if you're one of my millions of viewers who lives in the Milwaukee area, check out Good City Brewing. It's a new brewery just opened by my cousin. Awesome place with great beer. Go get one of their crowlers. Check out their double IPA. It's delicious. Tell them I sent you. It'd be kind of cool to see the connection.